Saving money is about to get even easier because a brand new Walmart Supercenter is opening soon near you. Now you can find low prices you can trust every day on all your grocery favorites, like fresh produce, quality meats, and more. Plus, let our pharmacy take care of all your prescription and over-the-counter medication needs. With Walmart, saving is simple.
Your new Walmart Supercenter is scheduled to open on March 9th at the corner of Black & Decker Road and US 303 in Fayetteville.
Save money, live better, Walmart.
Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Fort Bragg's backyard, this is the show that put the 110 Nation on the map. There is only one nation, the 110 Nation, and you're listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show, covering each and every sport across the board. There is no sport too large or too little. It's time to talk the talk. Here we go. Here's the man, the founder, and your host, Mr. CJ Sports.
Thanks for tuning in to the 110 Nation Sports Show. I'm your host, Mr. CJ Sports. You can follow me at CJ Sports 1. You can follow the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. Check us out on Facebook, my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports, the 110 Nation fan page, 110 Nation Sports. Also, check out our blog site, www.the110nationsports.com. Or check out our company site, www.110nation.com. .com as well for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. I'll tell you what, glad to be back here on a Monday. It is great to be back here doing this. Had to step out of the studio Friday, so we was unable to do this Friday, but glad to be here. It's great to start off this week, and it's great to start off this week with such a great show as we have Hannah Newhouse joining us tonight about 9:30, and she's going to be hanging out for a little while. We're going to talk about her off season, the 2016 plans, and NASCAR racing in general. So definitely excited about kicking this Monday off, kicking this week off, and be able to do it 110 Nation style. Oh, I tell you what, it's interesting news in the NFL today. As we have one player retired and one player getting traded, and I thought, I'm going to say both of them are interesting. One, it's just interesting to learn more about the retired player, I guess. I'm not going to say learn more, but you get an opportunity to reflect on a player's career. And especially a player such as Peyton Manning. And a player that has accomplished so much and has done so much, and such as Peyton Manning, and just to be able to see the stats. I mean, 71,940 passing yards, 5,477 passing yards in a season. Record set in 2013, 539 career passing yard TDs, 55 passing TDs in a season, also record sets, and these are all NFL records, career passing yards, 71,940. passing yards in a single season, like I said, set in 2013, 5,477, 539 passing touchdowns, 55 passing TDs in a season, set also in 2013, and 186 regular season wins by a quarterback, tied with Brett Favre. I mean, that's insanity. And to know that she's won 2 Super Bowls, and has gone, to 4 Super Bowls overall, 14 seasons with the Colts, 4 seasons with the Denver Broncos. And I think it just blows my mind that in 4 seasons he threw 140 passing touchdowns, and 399 in Indianapolis. Just imagine a couple more years how closer that gap would be. And I guess you would have expected the gap to be a little bit further because of the year differential. You're talking 10 years and only 259 passing touchdowns more. But so you would have thought in the in the 10 more years, I guess the gap would have been farther. But then it also tells you what Denver was working with in the 4 years that he was over with the Denver Broncos. At least 75% career winning percentage against 16 of the 32 teams in the NFL. 112 touchdowns thrown to Marvin Harrison, which is the most receiving touchdowns, manning 149 other receivers. And 399 passing touchdowns is number 1 in Colts history. And 140, even though it was only in 4 seasons, that's still number 2 in Broncos history. That's just insanely crazy to me, the kind of numbers that Peyton Manning has been able to put up throughout his career. And it really makes you kind of just reflect, knowing that this legacy, this phenomenal career that we know as Peyton Manning has now come to an end. And you know, it was to be expected. I know that he kept punting off, and I don't think that anybody I don't think anybody honestly thought that Peyton Manning was going to play another season. I mean, let's look at the facts for a minute. You got this whole University of Tennessee sex scandal stuff kind of surfacing. You got the whole HGH stuff kind of surfacing. You win the Super Bowl, but the first 6-7 games that you played, you were garbage, and you actually got benched after you had a 0.0 quarterback rating. And then you came in to kind of finish up the season at the very end and win the Super Bowl, which honestly, Brock Osweiler could have done exactly what Peyton Manning did, because Peyton Manning did not put on an arsenal display. It was that defense, once again, that continued to carry them. So, yes, in hindsight, you win a championship and it looks good, but the fact of the reality is that Peyton Manning didn't have that great of a year. And so, with everything kind of brewing, most of that stuff will kind of blow over. I don't expect much to come out of any of it, to be 100% honest. But to have all that brewing up, and then knowing that even though you won a Super Bowl, you were not the factor that helped win the Super Bowl. It was your defense. It was your backup quarterback that stepped in and took over and performed at a much better level. And, it looks like Brock Osweiler is going to be rewarded with a contract that is complementary to what he accomplished last year. And then you win the Super Bowl, and let's be honest, the defense put 14 points on the board. The defense scored 1 touchdown and gave you the ball to the other one was the 3-yard line, 4-yard line. And so you scored, 3 field goals? 3 field goals. That's really all you was able to muster up in the Super Bowl. So it's not like, you had this stellar stellar Super Bowl, and why not go out on top? Why not go in at your age and knowing the injuries and knowing the soreness and knowing everything else, why would you even contemplate about coming back and putting yourself through that and more than likely not finish out on top? I just don't see any benefits of that. And so I know a lot of people kept, I don't know if he's going to retire, and people talking about him possibly going to another team, and, and all that. I know the St. Louis conversation kept getting brought up, and I just kind of kept shaking my head every time that guy kept getting brought up, because I'm sitting there thinking there's no way. There's no way, with everything going on now in his personal life, brewing up in the news, there's no way that if he put up the season that he put up, and I'm not trying to knock Peyton Manning. I mean, he put up a phenomenal career. But last year, if it had been any other team with that quarterback performance, I don't think that there's a chance. If this would have been any other quarterback in any other team, or if this would have been even Peyton Manning on another team that didn't have such a great defense, Denver would have not won the Super Bowl. And there's no guarantees. There's no guarantee those pieces are going to be there next season. So, and you already got to DeMarcus Ware retiring. So, I just saw this really being, and even going to, now if you go to St. Louis, and I know that was one of the conversations and one of the teams that kept getting brought up, their defense is not as good as Denver. And so, like I said, there was too many things that left us to believe that there was no way. And I know there's a lot of hopefuls out there. I have seen a lot of comments on Facebook, this, that, and the other. And there was no doubt. I mean, really, I couldn't imagine him mustering up another season with the season he just had and everything. But the retirement today also gave me an opportunity to kind of reflect. I mean, and of course Brock Osweiler gets in the news with the video showing him involved with a scuffle outside a restaurant, and I think it has something to do with the female. So, of course, that's going to be an issue that Denver's going to have to deal with the future of their team. But watching Peyton Manning, and I'm not going to say that I was or wasn't a Peyton Manning fan. I will say that I have a lot of respect for Peyton Manning. I have never sat and watched, and it's not anything against Peyton Manning. Excuse me. It's not anything against Peyton Manning. I'm just the type that I have one team. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, and so I don't care about. It's not that I'm an anti-Brady, anti-Peyton Manning, want to have a job here to do with the 110 Nation. But also, I'm a fan of my teams and a fan of my players, and so I am not anti or pro anybody. I just respect players based off of their performance and how they conduct themselves. And I'm sorry about Peyton Manning. It is just one of those players that you have to respect for what he did on that field. To be able to sit there, I have never in my life watched a quarterback be able to come to a line and call audibles. Well, even more so, dissect the defense and change up the play, at the line because of what he read, and be able to change his play and even multiple times, and usually get it right. Like, I've never seen anybody so knowledgeable on the offensive side to be able to read the defense so well. In my life, it's been remarkable to watch it, and it's crazy to me. Like, I don't even think we've seen that in any other sports where a player is able to take the information with a 35-second clock and be able to dissect and be effective at the splits, at the drop of a dime. It has always been remarkable to me. And I don't think we'll ever see another player in our lifetime that has his talent, his understanding of the game, his understanding of being able to read a defense. And it's remarkably and extremely, well, it's extremely remarkable to be able to watch it. And you know, I think that's where a lot of the true Peyton Manning fans are going to be upset, and why the reaction they have, because that is something that we'll never be able to see. And no matter how talented the quarterbacks have been prior to him, and how talented the quarterbacks are in the NFL right now, and even what possibly we could see in the future, I don't think we'll ever see another Peyton Manning. And we listened to Cam Newton last year talk about, you know, people don't like me because they've never seen a quarterback like me. Yeah, to an extent, I mean, Randall Cunningham to me was I know Randall Cunningham wasn't exactly like, but it was pretty close. I don't think that I can recall one single quarterback that could do what Peyton Manning did and what I got to watch him do, especially in Indianapolis. I don't think we'll ever see that again. I've never, never have watched someone never watched anybody be able to just be able to read the defenses that he does, and it just amazes me. And you know, moving forward, obviously Denver, you know, is pretty well set in what they got, and obviously Brock Osweiler proved it. But I think that's another part that Denver is going to miss, is not having Peyton Manning is mentorship for Brock Osweiler to be able to feed off in these games that he was not playing in, that Peyton Manning was not playing in. And I tell you what, I want to be interesting to see how next season goes for Denver Broncos and Brock Osweiler. But having the opportunity to have watched Peyton Manning play for all these years, and watching him, you know, it sucks because a lot of people label him with you know, the fact that he was unable to win all these Super Bowls. And not having the success in the playoffs that, you know, and I know that's always going to be one of his black marks on his resume, and I know that I know a lot of people, they constantly harp on that, but if you take a minute and step back, and kind of take his whole career and look at the big picture and what he accomplished and what he actually did statistically. Honestly, the fact that you won 2 out of 4 Super Bowls, I mean, you can have this conversation, but I mean, look at Tom Brady. He's now, lost a couple Super Bowls, and I don't like that people hold that over him. It's not always the quarterback's fault. There's 10 other players on the offense. There's a whole defense. There's 52 other people on this roster, and Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning. Yeah, he had a bad game every now and then, but a lot of those playoff losses and even the Super Bowl, I mean, you can't. I mean, even the beatdown that the Seattle Seahawks gave them, you can't blame that all on Peyton Manning because the Denver defense didn't stop anybody. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks ran up the score, and it was just a whole team effort. And yes, a lot of it's going to fall on the shoulders of the quarterback, and they were not productive at all. If I'm not mistaken, their only points were late quarter points or late in the game anyway after they were well down. And it just, I hate that people look at Peyton Manning and use that as kind of how they judge Peyton Manning. And unfortunately, a lot of people do. I wish more people would focus on the records that he has set, the 71,000 yards, the 500 and some odd touchdowns, the most receiving or passing yards in a season, the most passing touchdowns in a season. The fact that he's number one with many historic names in Denver and Colts history. The fact that he's number one in Denver's record book and number two in Denver's record book and number one in Indianapolis' record book for passing touchdowns. I mean, that says a lot about this guy, especially since you did that in 4 years in Denver. So it kind of sucks that we lose the general. We lose, one of probably the best quarterbacks we'll ever see play this game, and a quarterback that we got to watch dissect a defense like nobody has ever been able to. It's like it was like he was reading the playbook, like he had a wire and knew exactly what the defense was about to call or what the defense was going to do. And it was phenomenal to watch. And for me to be able to say that, being a fan of a team in the AFC and watching them beat up on my team all the time, that says a lot to me, the respect that I have. Like I said, I'm not a Peyton Manning fan, nor do I dislike him. I have respect for him, and because of my job and because who I'm a fan of, I can't be fans of anybody else. I'm not one of those guys that, if my Browns don't win, then I want this team to win, or this team to win, or if that team's losing, then I want this team to win. I don't do that. I have people that I've worked with. Oh, my God, this guy, a guy named Ricky Melvin. Worked with him for a long time, and he had probably about 10 different team jerseys. And it was kind of one of those things you knew who actually did good that weekend, because Monday when he came to work, he was in that team's jersey. And so it was great to it was funny, and you got to see the fact that he had no loyalty. I'm the type that I do not have a single other NFL team jersey hanging in my closet. I do not have, except for one pajama pants, one other college team in my drawer, and I might throw them away, but they were on sale for like $3 or $4, and that was the reason I got them. And I think my ex at the time had even got it to me. I have one team NBA team shirts, and I have one team Major League Baseball shirts. I do not support, nor do I wear other teams. Now, racing's a little bit different to me. I have not purchased anybody else's stuff, but for all those that go to the tracks, you know that if you go down the hospitality areas, there's a good chance that you'll find somebody giving away free T-shirts with different drivers. And, I have a assorted of drivers of their shirts that I have in my closet just because I've gotten them for free. And I bought a Martin Truex hat back when he was with Marco Waltrip Racing at one of the tents for $1. So, racing to me is a little bit different. I only financially support my drivers, but I have other driver stuff in my closet to do. They were giving me. The other stuff, and most of the other stuff, I end up usually doing giveaways for. So, if I get other teams. But racing is kind of different for me, and that's, it is not just because I go and buy other stuff or accumulate other stuff. It's just one of those things that there's a lot of freebies, and I don't pass off freebies. It just doesn't happen. That's just not in my nature. The other big thing that happened today was DeMarco Murray is going to the Tennessee Titans. I thought that was rather interesting, just because we all know that I'm not sold on Marcus Mariota still. You had a quarterback come from Oregon that was a highly spoken of team, and you were unable to win a championship. And then to start off the season, everybody's, he put on this performance against Tampa Bay. Well, there's a reason why Tampa Bay had the number 1 draft pick. They were the worst team the prior season. So, of course, Marcus Mariota is going to look good. But as the season went on and you actually got to see Marcus Mariota, it wasn't quite as impressive as people, I guess people wanted it to be. I don't know. I just wasn't as impressed. I'm sorry. But that's kind of how people think it. And I thought it was interesting that the Philadelphia Eagles gave up so much and offered so much to get DeMarco Murray, and then just as quickly they went ahead and traded him off to the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, it was not a mix, or it was not a match, and we knew this all season long that DeMarco Murray was not happy. And honestly, I don't think he'll ever be happy unless he gets back to an offensive line like the Dallas Cowboys that blocked and gave him the holes that he needed and the protection he needed, or be back with the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's about the only way DeMarco Murray is going to be happy. Obviously, it's going to take the pressure off of Marcus Mariota. I think it's a great pickup for Tennessee. I don't know how happy DeMarco Murray is going to be. Yes, he's going to get a lot of touches because they need him to help take the pressure off of Marcus Mariota. But if your offensive line is not doing its job and is not blocking, you're going to see the frustration build up. And we kind of seen that at the beginning of the season with the Philadelphia Eagles. He was getting those touches at first, but he was averaging like next to nothing, like literally next to nothing in yards per carry because that offensive line was not blocking. So it doesn't matter how many times he carries the ball. If that offensive line is not giving him an opportunity to hit the holes and an opportunity to get some yardage, the frustration will build up because that's DeMarco Murray. He wants his yards. He wants his carries. He wants to be productive. And, unfortunately for Philadelphia, he was not a fit into that Philadelphia Eagles offense, nor, was they blocking the way he needed them to block. So I think that's my biggest curiosity when it comes to this whole trade is, will the Tennessee Titans be able to put up an offensive line and be able to block and give DeMarco Murray the best opportunity to be productive. And like I said, the touches obviously are going to be there because Marcus Mariota needs pressure taken off of him. They need the defense has got to feel a threat in the run game, and DeMarco Murray is going to give them that. But let's see how good of a trade this is, as long as Tennessee makes sure that they give him an offensive line that's going to protect, and they're going to make sure that they provide Marcus Mariota with receivers. That way there's a great mixture of run and pass, and give both of these two potential superstars. And again, I know if throwing Marcus Mariota into a potential superstar, there's possibility that he can become a Pro Bowl quarterback, a superstar quarterback. I have not seen it yet, and he had his opportunity in Oregon and fell flat on his face, especially when we lost the national title game against Ohio State. So the whole time there, the only thing he really accomplished is he won a bunch of games in really a weak conference, and he won the Heisman Trophy, so he was the most popular player that year. Big whoop-de-doo. So we'll see how that goes. But I like this move as long as Tennessee is committed to making sure that there's protection for Marcus Mariota, and more specifically, there's an offensive line that's going to provide gaping holes for DeMarco Murray and give him an opportunity to relieve the pressure off of Marcus Mariota and be able to be productive. And so the frustration doesn't build up and off the field, on the field, and the fact that it's actually a productive trade versus it being a trade that only really cost the Tennessee Titans and helped free up cap space for Philadelphia to continue improving their team. But without any further delay, we got Hannah Newhouse joining us tonight. We've had Hannah on the show many, many times, and we love having Hannah on the show. A ball of joy, a ball of energy, and very joyful to be on the show. This woman does a lot, and you know what? I get the opportunity to follow her on my timeline, and I honestly sometimes just get tired trying to keep up. She's all over the place. This is a lot. I also got to say with the fact that I'm twice her age, and I couldn't imagine doing all the traveling and doing everything she does, racing, school, K&M Pro stuff. We're gonna get all into that. Physically, I get drained just trying to keep up, and I couldn't imagine actually being out there and doing it. And she does it, and she does it great. And she's got herself involved with a great company that also helps provide her the nutrition and supplements that she needs to help make all this possible, and I'll give her an opportunity to talk about that as well. But without any further delay, probably one of my favorite guests all time that comes on this show. Let's go ahead and get her on the show. Hannah, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good as usual. Thanks for having me on.
It's an honor and a privilege to have you on. You have such a busy and interesting life, and it's always great, one, that you're able to make the time to come on here, but two, it's great to kind of be able to live the racing life through you, because you do so much and involved with so many different facets of the sport that you kind of get a feel of it all just having you on the show. So it's really cool. Before we jump into this, like we always do, I want to give you an opportunity to plug yourself, social media, website, team site, sponsorship, Boise States, whatever you want to throw out there real quick before we jump into this tonight.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys want to follow me via social media, you can get on Twitter, which is Newhouse Racing. Instagram is Hannah Newhouse. That's definitely a little bit more personal, but definitely my racing as well. And then on Facebook, it's just Hannah Newhouse Racing. Also, HannahNewhouse.com just got updated, so it's a little bit revamped, got a little new look to it. And then, of course, Boise State University. We're really excited to have them on again for the 2016 season, and our season's getting ready to start, as well as we're going to kick off our spring football game here soon. So really excited to be partnered back up with them again for another season.
And it was really cool to see that, and not only to see that the fact that your Boise State's back on it, but it was really cool to see the pictures that you guys released of the new look this year. And I tell you what, that 46 Boise State car looks really nice, and it was good to see it out there, and good to see that you guys are able to continue having this relationship. I don't think we've talked since the end of last season, and so I kind of want to get caught up with the off season before we jump into this season. What did you do in the off season? Did you get any time, any personal time? And I know it's kind of hard because in your off season, it's kind of when you're most busiest with school and all that stuff. But did you get an opportunity to have any personal time in the off season?
Yeah, actually, my off season was absolutely incredibly busy per usual. Off season didn't really start with me until, December, I want to say. You know, we were down in Phoenix, and I had the opportunity, of course, to have my internship with K&N Filters, and that let me go to the rest of the K&N East and West races, and the finale was mid-November at Phoenix. And so, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina 3 weeks later in December for the NASCAR banquet, which was an absolute blast. You know, it's always a lot of fun when you get hundreds of NASCAR enthusiasts, let alone drivers, in the same room for an evening of fun. So that was a lot of fun. But, yeah, it didn't slow down any. Full-time student, Christmas break was not long enough. Let's just say that. School started back up in January, full-time again. And, it's just been prepping for the 2016 season. You know, like I said, we're excited to have Boise State back on board. But with that, we had to get trucks wrapped, cars wrapped, new suits ordered, and you know, one of the things that separates me a little bit maybe from some other drivers is I do all of this on my own. I'm the one calling people, setting up dates, making sure everyone gets paid, invoices. It's a lot for me to handle at 19, plus working, plus full-time student. Plus, I get to travel a lot, and thankfully, you know, I've been actually dating K&N driver Grayson Raz as well, and I do a lot of traveling with him because I'm, side note, trying to get an internship through them as far as doing PR for the team. So, I was in California last weekend, California next weekend. If my head was not attached to my shoulders, I would lose it. I would absolutely lose it.
Hey, to you listeners, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Trying to keep up with all of that. And I'm not trying to say she floods the timeline or anything, but she does keep everybody posted. Just watching and seeing everywhere she is bouncing around, just physically, just like, wow, like I could not imagine. One, I couldn't imagine now, but at 19 years old, I know where I was at when I was 18, joined the military, and that's what made me grow up. You've already passed that. You got out of high school early. You're in college. You got all this stuff going on, and, you know, I felt that I had a lot going on when I was 18, 19 years old, and that's really only a drop in the bucket to what you have going on, and it's just amazing. And we'll give you an opportunity to plug this real quick before we go any farther. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on, and you're obviously on the road a lot, and obviously physical maintenance is a big thing for all athletes. Let the listeners know what you do to help maintain your physical physique and what you take and how they can get some of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually stumbled across a company by the name of Herbalife about a year and a half ago. And when I mean stumble upon, I got denied an apartment, and my best friend was like, well, move in with my family. And they were an Herbalife family. They live, eat, breathe Herbalife. So I literally stumbled upon it by the fact that I moved in with an Herbalife family. And I was so busy, I was like, there's no way I can fit this into my regimen. I'm constantly traveling. You know, when you're on the road, you can't watch what you eat, you can't exercise. And little did I know that that's exactly what Herbalife was built for, someone with, you know, all different types of lifestyles. And not going to lie, I totally slacked for half a year. 2 weeks on it, 2 weeks off the product, 2 weeks on it. And I was like, guys, I'm not seeing results. What is going on? And actually, in the last 3 months, I was like, okay, you know what, Hannah, time to hammer down. I'm going to do this. And once I, committed myself, it's been amazing. I work out on a weekly basis, 3 to 4 nights a week, but that's simply for the fact that I want to be in the best shape I am to be the best driver I am now. And, the product's been incredible. I actually just got to try a new product there called Drive, and it's tailored to endurance athletes. So basically you get all of these insane electrolytes that, like, Gatorade does. It's like Gatorade on crack. I don't know how to explain it. But you're not getting the sugars, the calories, all that kind of stuff, but you get that hydration and electrolytes. And, oh, my gosh, absolutely amazing. And the cool thing is, for all NASCAR drivers, it's approved through all, I can't think of what they're called. but all like agencies to where they're not illegal in NASCAR. Like everything that they use has been approved through all athletic associations. So good to go. You're not going to get in trouble in any drug testing. So that's fun. But yeah, I'm definitely a distributor of Herbalife. I now eat, sleep, breathe the product as well. So if anyone's interested in it, they can definitely contact me via social media. And man, we have something for everyone's lifestyle. Like that's the cool thing about the product.
And, I've gotten to try some of the sample, and, I stumbled across it a handful of years ago at this point myself. And, I wish I would have kept up. And once I get everything situated, I will be contacting you as well. It is one of those things that I'm getting back into the gym now myself and getting everything resituated here with my new current situation. So I know a lot of the product, and it's a lot of great stuff and a lot of great tasting stuff. It's not one of those companies that, throws out a bunch of stuff and it just like you miss on the taste. Almost everything that I've tried has been really good. So you guys make sure you guys check that out. 2016 seems to be a year that, I don't want to say revamp your career, but with the unfortunates of the funding last year, and then now this year we're going for multiple championships, it seems that it's kind of going back into the other direction, and you guys got some goals this year over there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've had a lot of people question, what we're doing with our race team this year. They're like, Hannah, you were making the next steps up in NASCAR. You were running the K&N Pro Series. What are you doing? Like, you're taking a step down. You're going back to what you ran when you were 15. And, yes, it was a hard pill to swallow at first, but we basically looked at, you run where your budget makes you competitive. And we've come to the conclusion of we're competitive in these pro trucks that we own, and we can be competitive on a local late model scale. And honestly, for the sake of my resume, to be able to rack up these wins, it's going to be better for me in the long run to go, win 8-9 super late model races or take home 2 championships than for me to go run the equivalent amount of money that would be maybe 3 K&N West races and, maybe not getting the best of equipment and finish 13th. People are going to look at it and go, wow, she's got tons of wins and championships, and look how good she did this year in 28 races, or I can run 3 K&N West races. So we basically just made the decision that we're going to run where our budget best fits, and it may include taking a step down, but heck, I'm getting like 28 races this season. I mean, I thought I was busy last season, and I ran 12. My summer is about to get a whole lot busier, and I just signed up for summer college class. So I have no idea what is wrong with me. Yeah, of course, right? As if my plate wasn't full enough.
I see 3 different series, and correct me wrong if there's more, since your press release that you guys released back in February. But I'm looking at 3 different series that you're going to be running in. What 3 series for the listeners, and how much of a difference is it between the series for you?
So we're going to be running 2 separate full-time super late model series. We actually had a traveling regional touring series by the name of the Rocky Mountain Challenge Series. And recently our promoter actually retired. It was a sad deal. He actually promoted when my dad also started off his career in late models. But he retired this year. And our local tracks that we toured to took it upon themselves to absorb the series into their own local late model. So it's really cool that these series have no conflicting dates. So that allows us, as what were the touring drivers, to now run for championships at 2 different tracks. So I'll be running for a late model championship at Meridian Speedway called the Big 5 Series, and then also at Rocky Mountain Raceways in Salt Lake City, Utah. They're doing a local late model thing as well. So that'll be really cool to run for those championships. We've had success at both tracks. Plus, we'll do a couple one-off late model races as well. We're going to go try and run Vegas. Wouldn't be surprised if we make a trip up to maybe Washington, maybe down to California once or twice when funding permits. But then also something that I'm even more excited about than my late model racing is we've decided to go ahead and do a full-time truck again as well. We ran it in 2014, I want to say, and was runner-up, almost won the championship, just had some bad luck the last 2 races, which swiped the championship from us. And I have to say, probably the reason I'm more excited about that than ever is not only is it going to be me driving, I now own a truck. My little brother, who's 16, is now an owner of a truck. And my dad just purchased a truck, and he's building a new truck. So all three Newhouses will be competing against each other in the same truck series on track. Like, it is going to be absolutely nuts. And so I'm so excited to get to race with not only just my dad, but my dad and my brother. And I know all three of us have competitive race trucks. So it's going to be, some might say a nightmare, but I'm thinking it's going to be absolutely a blast.
Does your brother lean on you much for advice, and is he pursuing this as a career as well?
You know, we're not really sure about my little brother at the moment. You know, he's 16. He's an amazing athlete in high school. I mean, he played football, basketball, baseball. And so right now he's not really sure what he wants to do. I think he's just starting to get a taste of it. You know, he's gonna kill me if he ever hears me say this, but he was kind of one of those kids that if I'm not good at it, I don't want to do it. And he was always really naturally good at sports. And so, you know, racing has its ups and downs. You know, you don't win every single race. And so he had a lot of frustrations and never really fell in love with it as much as I did. But 2 years ago, he won a huge invitational race down in Vegas in his truck. And ever since then, I've seen a spark in him that's a little bit different. And I wouldn't be surprised, you know, after this year, after the success he had last year, if he's like, okay, Dad, you know, I'm ready for the move up to late models next year. But he's a little scared of the big cars. So we'll see. I mean, something could definitely change. I would love to see him pursue some late model stuff. And as a career, I don't see him ever actually pursuing a career in racing. But I definitely know he enjoys it and would like to move up the ranks a little bit farther.
Now, with these three different series, and I know you said that they didn't overlap the races, but how much traveling is involved? I mean, how far apart are all these different tracks that you're going to be traveling to this year just for the racing alone?
Our racing is actually pretty centrally located, thankfully. Salt Lake City from our shop in Twin Falls is about a good 4 hours. So that's not a big deal. We generally do all of our races there and back in the same day because, you know, we'll run at Meridian Speedway, which is about an hour and a half. Twin Falls Magic Valley Speedway is basically in our backyard. So thankfully, most of the tracks that we'll be racing and competing at are no more than about 4 hours away. So that'll definitely cut down our traveling considering, you know, last year we were in Iowa, we were in Southern California, we were all over the place. And then I believe our farthest race this year actually will be in Las Vegas at the end of the year, and that's about 9 hours. So we cut down our travel immensely as far as like one-off really long trip, but we also doubled our schedule. So we now have double the races, but the distance is shorter. So we'll see. We'll be on the road a lot. I'm sure my crew guys will be stoked to send me back to college at the end of the summer.
Now, are you going to be doing any internship with the K&N stuff this year, or was that just a last year thing?
That was just a last year thing. My internship wasn't renewed. We couldn't quite manage it with the fact that, you know, I had an opportunity to come up to get to run all of these races this year, and that would require me to miss almost 3/4 of the K&N season. And so that's not something that we've set up yet, but I am looking, you know, there are a couple weekends where I am free to go to these K&N races, and I'm working with a couple different teams, you know, to be able to do some PR for them, and we have a couple prospects right now. I was like, you don't even have to pay me. If you just pay me to get down there to actually be at the racetrack, I'll totally do your PR. And my dad's like, Hannah, that's not how jobs work. Like, one day you're going to have to pay the bills. I'm like, no, Dad, because I'll just live on the road. Like, we're good. I'll be at the racetrack every weekend. So, yeah, we'll see. I would love to get an internship and be at all those K&N races because, man, those people are my family. Like, that's where I want to be. But between my race schedule and college classes and a social life, and I don't know, we'll see. I'll figure it out somehow.
It's very understandable, and I understand, and so I was kind of curious if you were doing it again this year, how you was fitting all that in. I was sitting there trying to piece all this together. During that last year with the internship, what did you take out of it the most? And two, do you think it changed your perspective when it comes to, racing and the NASCAR ranks in any way?
I did find certain little aspects of it difficult that I didn't think I would. More than anything with this internship, I was in charge of the social media. So I did the Twitter, the Periscope, post-race write-ups, which I absolutely love doing. So it was a lot of fun to be able to do that. Kept me way busier than I thought I was going to be as far as making sure that I was up on top of it all the time. But I loved doing it, so it's not like it was ever a hard thing for me. But something that it kind of brought to light with me is after that internship, I went to go plan out my next semester, which would be this current spring semester, and I was like, man, I'm in economics and finance and general business of law and all these classes. I'm like, this isn't what I like to do. Like, what I like to do is what I'm doing with this internship. I like to talk and communicate and do meetings and do all kinds of stuff like that where it's human interaction. Like, sorry, but I don't want to go to school for books and learn how to do bookkeeping and accounting and finance. So I finally actually, right after I got done with that internship, sat down with a counselor here at Boise State, and I was like, well, what am I doing? Like, look, this is what I want to do as a career. And he's like, you're in the wrong field. He's like, you're going for business right now, and business is, dealing with money and dealing with finances. And when you say you're a marketing major, your mental thinking is, you're marketing for NASCAR teams. You're going and talking to people and social media marketing and that kind of stuff. But marketing here at Boise State is, how much money do we have? How are we going to make more? And I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I want to do. So I actually just switched my major to a communications major, and I'm getting a certificate in public relations. So, whole new track for Hannah, lots of extra classes. It's going to be grand. So that's what that internship taught me, is I was going to college for the wrong thing.
Oh, goodness. 2016 season, obviously wins and championships, every driver's goal. Those set aside, now that, and I know some people look at it as a step back, coming back out of the K&N Pro Series and doing this. To me, I look at it more as you're moving forward. You went from, being in the series that you was only able to do 3 races to now you're moving forward on your career, and regardless of the series, the talent is there, and so you're still being challenged every single race, but now instead of 3 races, it's 28 races. But with you having an opportunity to compete in all these different series and all these, different tracks and different types of cars, what, outside of the wins and outside of the championship, what is your goal? What do you want to accomplish most to get out of the 2016 season that will help you improve either where you're going or, improve yourself as a driver, whatever the case may be? What are you looking for to get out of the 2016 season?
Something that I'm really looking forward to, and actually my dad and I had this conversation this morning, is the communication between myself and my crew, because the last 2 years we have flat out struggled, and it's definitely shown. We had some crew chiefs that we'd hired on, and my dad and I have always loved him to death. We've always conflicted at the racetrack because he's also a driver. So the first thing he wants to say to me is his perspective as a driver, which sometimes helps but sometimes doesn't. And so, the last 2 years we've just struggled between communication between myself and a crew chief. And it was so funny. We actually brought on a crew chief that we had worked with a little bit beforehand, and we brought him on for Vegas, which was my very last race of the year last year. And a huge race, invitational. There was 50 cars, and they started 27. And we were normally about 23rd on the board when we would go and compete in this race because it was just hot. They were just some hard hitters. And we brought on this crew chief, and it was so weird because normally when I get out of the car and they're like, okay, what's the car doing? And I tell them, they're like, okay, well, you need to try and drive this differently, and you need to do this differently, and then you need to do this, but maybe we'll change this because it looks like it's actually doing something else. So we weren't getting the communication we needed, and this new crew chief, his name's Chuck Carruthers, and we're excited to work with him again this year. He would get out of the car and go, Hannah, what's the car doing? And I would say, it's doing this. And he goes, okay, sounds good. We're going to change this, this, and this. Now go back out in there. And every single time we got on the track, we got faster, which is funny because when your tires get older, you generally get slower. And, we ended the final practice like 7th on the board. It was absolutely nuts. And so we really learned that the communication is key, and I'm really looking forward to that because I think that's going to attribute huge to our success this year. You know, when you have good communication, you have good race cars. When you have good race cars, you win races. And so I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm also looking forward to being behind the wheel because going from 8, 9, 10 races every year to 28, I mean, seat time is one of the biggest things you can possibly have as an advantage. Man, yeah, that's why I'm also working out a ton. It kicks my butt.
You brought up the different crew chief. How difficult is it for a driver to adjust from one crew chief to another crew chief? To have one person and you know, they have their perspective of how the car should, you know, the changes should be made to make a car run, and how, you know, they feel that a car and a driver should strategize a race to go into a different one. Is it a big adjustment?
Yeah, it's a huge adjustment. I mean, my dad and one of my crew chiefs for my late model, you know, they've always really just kind of been my crew chiefs, and they finally decided at the end of or the middle of last year that they've run out of knowledge with the technology that's, you know, becoming part of these super late models and stuff. They don't know it anymore, and so it was only beneficial to us to bring someone on that knew all of this new knowledge. So that was huge. That was huge for us. But more than anything, like I said, working with different crew chiefs, you really do have to find one you click with, and that's why you see these Cup drivers constantly switching around Cup crew chiefs when they're not seeing success. Because if you don't click with your crew chief, you know, it's really hard to be successful. And I had a really bad entanglement with one of my crew chiefs at Meridian this year, and we still love him to death, so there's no hard feelings at all with me saying this. But we just struggled all day in practice, all day, and he kept telling me, well, drive it like this guy, drive it like this guy, and I was like, dude, the car will not do that. Like, you need to listen to what I'm saying to make the car do that. And so finally I said, you know what, I'm going to drive it how I want, and that's how it's going to be. And he's like, okay, sounds good. Well, you're going to eat crow on lap 75. And we put up the best finish we had all year. So it was just funny. We all went to dinner that night later and laughed, but it was just like I said, I didn't click with him, and he didn't click with me, and that's when we came across Chuck. And, man, I mean, it's just been a world of difference, and working with different crew chiefs, it has its challenges because you don't click with everyone, sadly.
I guess listening to you say that, I guess it makes you, I'm not saying you necessarily, but NASCAR fans or race fans out there kind of appreciate the Jimmy Johnson, Jack Knaus deal where they've been together throughout their whole career, because, you know, you're constantly seeing the rotation and trying to find the right pieces, and to see, you know, a combination such as them two be together for as long as they have, I guess that kind of makes that even more remarkable, that they've not had to make any changes, that it's been a very successful run for them too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jimmy Johnson and Jack Nowes are like goals, if you want to say like crew chief and driver goals, because, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that to have someone that you've been able to work with. And, I mean, look at them. They're successful. You know, they've had multiple championships. They just won Atlanta last week. I mean, and that shows. I mean, you know, you looked at Hendricks, or you look at Stuart Haas, and Stuart Haas just did a bunch of crew chief changes last year. And I mean, it really is. It makes a huge difference in success, because you got to have that one person that trusts the driver more than anything. Because if you don't have a crew chief that trusts the driver's ability, we got a problem. But yeah, it's just matching up personalities as well. And so, yeah, those two are goals. I would love to one day find a crew chief, and I think Chuck's that guy for us. Because, man, I mean, we've had a lot of success with him, so we're excited.
Now, there's a couple other questions I want to ask, and it's really cool because I got to ask Steve Billmeyer earlier in the night when I did another show, and got to get it from the crew chief's point of view, and now that I get you on, I get it from the driver's point of view. I'm not sure if you've had to do any actual pit stops, but if any of your races have gone to that extent where you guys, you know, had to do pit stops, but we saw this weekend a lot of pit road speeding violations in NASCAR, and so if you haven't, then you still answer the question: is it difficult for the drivers to monitor exactly their speeds in those cars? I know they ain't got a speedometer and they got to go off the tachometer, but is it difficult to make sure you stay within where you got to be? Is it? We saw a lot of violations this weekend, and so I'm trying to understand what was so different about this weekend that we saw so many speeding violations in NASCAR, and so I'm trying to get an idea how difficult it really is to monitor your speed out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're under caution laps. We'll be behind the pace cars, and they'll be like, "Okay, guys, this is pit road speed," and it matters where you are in the lineup too. You might be 12 car lengths behind the car in front of you, and when they say that, you're running third gear, 5,000 RPM, but the guy in front of you might be second gear, 2,000. And so really, unless you have a speedometer that says 20 miles an hour, you really don't actually know. And so I know it's a race off of pit road, but, when we did our pit stops at Phoenix, we always went by, better safe than sorry. You can make those 2-3 positions up on track, but man, if you get caught speeding, you have to do that extra green flag pit road stop, and then you might lose 25 positions. And so it really is better safe than sorry, but it's horribly hard. I've gotten pit road penalties multiple times in our late model stuff when we go to the big tracks, because a driver also has to control their adrenaline. They want to get to their pit, get the pit stop done, and get back on the track. And man, to really restrain yourself with 600 horsepower under the hood to go like 15 miles an hour down pit road, it's a difficult task.
I can only imagine. And, like I said, this weekend was just unusually high amount of speeding violations, which was really weird. I don't know if you caught the race or not. They also had an unusual high amount of vibrations, and it was just really weird on that as well. And another big topic this weekend, what they kept talking about, was the weather, and we saw the winds. How difficult is that on drivers when you have the wind that we've seen at Las Vegas this weekend, where you've seen the flagpole kind of leaning over, and you could see how windy it was, and then they had a sandstorm and everything else during the race. But how difficult, how much does that affect your guys' driving, and how much of an adjustment you guys got to make when the wind is that strong out there?
Yeah, we've never really been on a track like that to where we've had winds to that degree. The only thing I can possibly really relate that to is I went to Pikes Peak International Raceway, which is a mile track in Colorado, and we went with super late models, which is absolutely nuts. I look back at that now, and I'm like, you guys are on crack. Why would you let us do that? But, we practiced all day, and near the end of, nothing much of it. There's walls that protect us, and with the banking and stuff, we should be fine. But, man, when you're going down a straightaway at 160 miles an hour and a wind gust hits you, those cars are lightweight for the horsepower and the speed we're going. You go into an instant tail whip. It is the weirdest feeling ever. I guess the best way I can describe it is going down the freeway at 80, hauling a trailer, and you start tail whipping. But the difference is you're in a little car going 160 tail whipping. You feel like you got a trailer on. And, I don't really know how you would adjust that, because fortunately I've never had to race in a condition like that. But I can only imagine that would affect drafting immensely too.
Now, have you had an opportunity, at least not maybe so much Daytona, but seen any of the last two races?
I was camping this weekend, so I didn't see Atlanta. I didn't see Vegas. And where was I? I was somewhere else. I was in Bakersfield, California, for the Winter Showdown for Atlanta, and so we actually raced on Sunday, so I didn't watch that race either. So the only race I watched thus far is Daytona. But I watched the truck races. I watched all the truck races.
We'll talk about the truck races. The reason I was asking, because Daytona wasn't affected with the new downforce package. And, with the new package, to me, it gives us an opportunity to see who really the racers are. I think before you had a lot of drivers be able to kind of go through the motion, but you can see the excitement out of those that are true racers in NASCAR. And, the way this new downforce package is working, it kind of separates the true racers from those that kind of have gotten their way to their without truly having to be a true racer. And so, I was wanting to bring that up. But I'm glad you brought up the truck series. The caution clock. I was kind of, I'm one of those NASCAR fans that I like to wait until I see the changes and how they affect. And I feel that, you got NASCAR fans that are complaining about they want this change and they want that change. And as soon as NASCAR makes a change to try to, fix what, the fans are complaining about, all of a sudden the fans are now upset about the new change. Well, I don't know why they keep changing this, that, and the other. And, I said that, scratched my head. You were complaining last year or 2 years ago that you didn't like the way it was, and now NASCAR has made the change. You don't like it. And, a lot of times, you might not see the benefits of it right out the gate. Sometimes it takes a full year to come back around to the tracks and see the benefits. Sometimes, a prime example I like to use is the COT. That was probably one of the worst cars that NASCAR ever went to. But if we wouldn't have made that change and gone into that direction, we may have never ended up with the generation cars that we have now. So, it was a long-term effect before we finally got to the product we are now. And the Truck Series is another prime example with this caution clock. I was kind of, let me see how this plays out. And, of course, sitting there watching it at Daytona, I didn't get to catch, if there was a second race, I didn't get to catch the second race. I can't remember. It seemed like the Nemechek kid won the second race, so I missed that one. But watching Daytona and watching the caution clock kind of give opportunities for strategy, and then to watch either one of the caution clocks actually cause a caution as they all try to dip in right before that clock hit zero, made things really interesting to me, and I like it. And there's certain tracks that
I think I might have lost you there. Are you still there?
And I try to call back so quick, and hopefully she comes back. I don't know. This is a different phone than the one that used to do it, but the old phone used to, there she goes. The old phone used to hang up right at the hour mark, and this phone never has done that before, and it was just really random that it hung up on me. So I do apologize, and I know that had to be weird for you. All of a sudden, I'm just gone. But, it was cool to watch it and watch how this strategized. And there's certain tracks out there I'm not a big fan of. I go to Charlotte all the time. It's a 2-hour drive, but that's, to me, not the most exciting track, and there's a lot of downtime. So this, for the Truck Series, guarantees we're going to have pit action or strategy every at least 20 minutes. But at the same time, I'm still waiting for that one race where we get just inside that 20, just outside that 20 lap. After 20 laps, they shut it, or with 20 laps left, they shut that clock off. But say we're about 24, 22 laps or whatever the case is. And so the caution comes out because of the time going out. In a track like last week in Las Vegas where tires was a big thing, and how, say we have Nemechek's son out there again, and he's got a 2-second lead with 22 laps left, and the 20-minute buzzer goes off, or whatever you want to call it, and now everybody's got a pit, and how teams are going to like it then. I'm really interested to see, because I think that'll change a lot of opinions when a driver or a team is out there and they got a second and a half lead, and they got the most dominant car, and when that 20-minute clock hits and they have to pit because tires are so important at that track, I think opinions will change. But what was your first initial thoughts when you heard about this caution clock thing? And after having an opportunity to see in a couple truck races, what are your feelings on it now?
When I first saw the caution clock and they announced it, of course there was an uproar of not only fans but drivers as well. And fortunately, I'm friends with quite a few of the truck drivers, and some people that I had conversations with included like Tyler Reddick. And him and I talked about it a little bit, and he's like, I can't judge it too quickly. I guess we'll just have to see where it goes, because like you had stated, it really allows for some drivers to add strategy into it. It's not just for fans, because I'm not going to lie, I'll agree with fans. When you run 60 laps caution-free, green flag racing, generally, you know, the whole field spread out, and it's just single file racing, and as fans, you get bored. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So I feel like NASCAR made this option, now that I've watched it, for not only fan enjoyment, but also for opportunities, like you said, for strategy, because tires do become important, pit road positions become important, and then it also gives opportunities for underfunded teams as well to have shots at these restarts and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, I'm going to have to watch a couple more races to really see how it works, because I watched the fiasco that took place right before the caution clock went out down pit road, which was a disaster. And but at the same time, you know, it does give opportunities. I mean, the best feeling in the world when you're running third place is a caution clock goes off, and guess what? We got 50 to go, and all of a sudden first place, which was 20 car lengths ahead of you, is now right in front of you, and he's got the same tires you do. So it really does depend on where you're sitting, because if you're leading it and the caution clock comes out, man, you are not happy. Like, you are like, you've got to be kidding me right now. So it spices it up. I mean, it makes it different for fans, because now there's more opportunities for side-by-side racing, but there's also more opportunities for wrecks. As a racer, wrecks suck. As a fan, they're great. We love them. Like, we love to watch them. I'm sorry. If it's not your equipment, it's fun to watch wrecks. Sucks to say. But, yeah, I don't know, you know. I guess I'm indifferent. I don't have to race with them, but we'll just have to see when a different track comes up. You know, I would like to see how they do caution clocks. Maybe they're not going to do them at half miles, right? They won't do them at, like, Bristol and stuff. I don't think trucks run Bristol, but
I am not 100. No, I think they definitely run Bristol. It seems like it. Don't quote me on that, but it seems like I remember watching the race last year with Kyle Busch in the 54 at Bristol. It just seems like, I don't know why that sticks out. It might not be. It might just be too small for that weekend, and they don't come. I can't remember now. But talking about the truck races, truck series, you know, I think the biggest thing when I watched, especially when I sat down and watched Daytona, is, and you're another prime example of, one, being the young talent, but having the same, I guess, opportunity as I do, as many guests as we have on, and how many drivers you get to talk to. Seeing this sport, one, not only make the changes for the better, but to see this slew of young talent working its way through, and it's really remarkable. I mean, Daytona, there were 6 drivers that were teenagers in the truck series out there. And even this weekend, watching Ryan Blaney and Austin Dillon and Chase Elliott have the weekend that they have, and unfortunately Chase Elliott got caught in someone else's mess, but to see across all series, K&N Pro, ARCA series, you know, you can see that the farm system, and I say farm system, but the Friday and Saturday night drivers, the talent level is getting so much better, and there's so many more opportunities because of the Drive for Diversity program, which you've had an opportunity to be part of, and the NBC coverage of all the lower series. To me, that when I had an opportunity to look back on Daytona, that was the biggest thing that stuck out to me, was the fact that this sport has so much promise, because there are so many talented drivers on their way up to the Sprint Cup Series. It is very, very remarkable how talented this pool is, and it's going to be interesting who actually gets those opportunities. Have you noticed how the talent level has shifted into that direction, and noticed in the Truck Series how many young drivers there are?
Yeah, I mean, the drivers, I mean, I think they were commentating the other day at Daytona, and they said it best, with the top, I think, like 15 out of the top 20 were all under the age of, like, 24. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. And then, of course, Chase Elliott, fan at heart over here, was stoked to see, you know, him. I think he just turned 20, I want to say, in the Cup Series. And, I mean, there's a kid that's racing late models at my home track that's 11 years old. Personally, a little too young, but, hey, you know, if they prove themselves, more power to them. I mean, the talent level is just absolutely insane, and to watch how young they are. I mean, Jimmy Johnson's really not that old, but given the next 5 years, him and Earnhardt are going to be some of the oldest drivers in the field, because you're going to see people like, Blaney's full-time Cup this year, but you're going to see people like Nemechek, who's going to move up to the Xfinity Series here real soon, and you're going to see hopefully people like Hemrick and Reddick and, oh my goodness, Christopher Bell and Eric Jones and all of these kids who, man, they're still under the age of 24, and they're going to be moving up here pretty soon, and they're the next generation of Cup. I mean, it's going to be weird because one day, you know, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, look at all of these young kids driving truck series and all this stuff, and to think that at one point those were my friends that are now racing Cup is just going to be weird.
I'm curious and how excited the truck drivers were since you had an opportunity to talk to some of them. The chase ended up being such a success in the Sprint Cup Series, which kills me how fans still constantly, you got some of them still constantly, all I wish was they go back to the old Winston Cups point. After the last 2 years, I don't know how anybody wants to go back between the fights and what we saw with Jules Logano, Matt Kenseth, and the fact that you're guaranteed to have 4 contenders at Miami Homestead. You know, that was one of probably my most favorite experiences was being down there last year for the race. I don't know how anybody would want to go back to that, but such a success, the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series now have the same format, just a little bit different. What was the overall general senses? Were the truck drivers, were they happy with this change, or did they like the old formats?
Yeah, I think a lot of the truck drivers are excited for the change because, you know, a lot of them have this idea that they're going to move up the ranks, you know, and into Cup and into Xfinity and stuff like that. So I feel like NASCAR set up a kind of system to where they try stuff, let's say, in the Cup Series first, and if it works, they eventually move it down. And, you know, a perfect example is you start to see the Gen 6 bodies. You know, we now have them in the K&N Series. And we're starting to do different things that they've implemented over the years that are moving down the ranks. And I think a lot of the truck drivers are excited to have the chase format simply for the fact that it's possibly preparing them to move up in the ranks to, you know, understand that, okay, you got to win and you got to be consistent in finishes to be able to, you know, be in the chase. It's a whole new thing. Plus, per usual, you know, NASCAR does it for the fans. Like you said, the reaction the fans had, maybe not so much the drivers, but the reaction the fans had to the chase format was huge. And so they're like, well, heck, if it was successful in fans, let's implement it elsewhere. And so, a lot of the drivers, like I said, more or less are like, okay, don't knock it till you try it kind of thing. Because either way, with or without the chase, they're racing. So I think a lot of them are excited, you know. I'm excited for them. I'm excited to watch how it plays out.
Now, I don't bring this up because I want to talk about politics. And there's one of those two things that I feel that you keep out of the workplace, politics and religion. But, you know, Brian France said what he said earlier in this week. And my question to you, being a race car driver, should he have just kept that his personal preference and who he's voting for and who he is backing? One of those things where, especially with this sport and the diversity, and especially who he's endorsing and the comments he has made, should Brian France kind of keep his personal business to himself and not let it reflect the sport? Because I think there's a good chance if you kind of put your name labeled to, you know, NASCAR and who you're endorsing, that could possibly turn off certain, you know, fans, especially when you're trying to be more of a diverse, you know, sport and trying to bring all different race and sex into the sport.
You know, we just had, it's ironic you asked that. We just had that conversation not but this morning in my general law class because politics comes up frequently, and I'm known as the NASCAR girl in the class. And my professor brought up, hey, heard NASCAR endorsed Trump. And I was like, okay, hold up. NASCAR didn't endorse Trump, but the CEO of NASCAR did. And he's like, oh, same difference. And I'm like, well, hold on here. Is it really? And so we really got into detail about it. And risky move? Yeah, I think so. I think it was really risky, and I think he knew the consequences. But, I mean, I just read a post not but 30 minutes ago that Mark Martin was another guy that had just endorsed Trump, and, you know, Bill Elliott, Chase Elliott, and I believe someone else had also endorsed Trump. And so I can understand where NASCAR fans are having a hard time distinguishing, you know, between NASCAR endorsing him and France endorsing him. But because NASCAR basically is the France family, so Yeah, that's a tricky question. I mean, at what point do you keep your mouth shut? I don't really know. I'm not into big politics at the moment, and I probably should be more politically educated. But yeah, that's a tough one. I can definitely see both sides.
To me, it's one of those things that, regardless of your backing, I for me, you know, my personal, who I'm going to vote, my religion, all that, that's conversations I have and let my friends know, or my family know, or my children know. And you know, and it's only in conversation. I don't feel that the world or your sport needs to know who, you know, to me, just some things are personal. And, you know, so I just think that, you know, especially being the CEO of a company is just one of those things that, you know, if you're out conversating with your father or your mother or a long time best friend, yeah, have that conversation. But when you run the biggest motorsport sport in the world, you kind of got to leave some things to be private and some things that can be public. And, you know, Brian, I feel that it's one of those things that, you know, if it's got to do with the sports and it's got to do, you know, what we see, then yes, you know, talk about it. But if it's got to do with your personal life, your personal preference, all that, it's one of those things that regardless if NASCAR officially endorses or just the fact that Brian France endorses, you're still labeled as NASCAR. You are the CEO. You're kind of the face. Good or bad decisions, you're the one that heads on the chop block. So I just don't think that was the wisest of moves when it comes to that. And just kind of my personal take on it. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else that why I had an opportunity to kind of pick your brain. If there was anything else that was out there that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's another thing, you know, like the whole political side of it, in a sense that relates back to the huge conflict we had last year in NASCAR with the Confederate flag, you know. NASCAR said take it down, and it was like, whoa, hold up here, you know. And, I mean, I think that was something, too, that, you know, people on Facebook and people like that are so ironic because, like you said earlier, they're like, oh, if NASCAR doesn't make this change, I'm not watching NASCAR anymore. And then NASCAR makes a change. Oh, my gosh, they keep changing stuff. I'm not watching NASCAR anymore. And it's like, okay, all right, guys. And so it's kind of like, at this point, I think the France family is like, you know, you take it or you leave it. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. And in the end, we're all going to show up and race anyways. And that's just how it works. I mean, they got enough money and enough power, and they've obviously been this successful thus far. So I think they're just like, well, screw them in a sense. I mean, it's been nuts what's been going on in NASCAR the last couple of years.
You know, it's funny because many people actually stop watching NASCAR that you actually see post on Facebook or any social media that said they weren't going to watch NASCAR. Those seats would be empty because it is always a bunch of people that you see say, I'm never watching NASCAR again, I'm done with it, but you see them say it again a few weeks later, and obviously they're back to watching NASCAR up to that point anyway. Yeah. We've had Donald Trump on a couple of vehicles throughout the last year. Should race teams mess and mingle into when we have politics? You know, like I'm still a firm believer that it kind of needs to stay out of the sport, but obviously race teams need the financial backing and, you know, any kind of support or any kind of attention, even if they're not getting a financial support, they're getting, obviously, TV national attention because you're being sponsored or at least one of the presidential candidates is on the car. Is that one of those things that other race car drivers kind of look at it as a frown, or do you guys care at all that you have teams out there that have, you know, presidential candidates on their cars?
Yeah, I mean, I think as fellow race car drivers, we're respectful of the fact that you do what you got to do to get to the racetrack, and if that means endorsing a presidential candidate on your car, then more power to you. You know, you see some people that have some out there weird, probably don't want to admit it, sponsors on their car, but if in the end, you know, it gets you the publicity or it gets you the sponsorship or it pays for your tire bill, I mean, you got to rough it sometimes to make it to the racetrack, and so. I mean, Johnny White actually totally had Trump on his car last weekend at the Winter Showdown, and that guy had more pictures taken of his car that was posted all over social media than the actual winner of the race did. And I guarantee you he got some interest from someone, whether it be a Trump supporter or a not Trump supporter, about his car, and it was just great publicity for him. So I don't think as a racer we necessarily mind for the fact that, like I said, you got to do what you got to do to get to the racetrack.
And as a fan, I kind of have mixed feelings because, like I said, I like to keep that separated. But at the same time, because NASCAR does the things they do, like having title sponsors, once Sprint took over, it was a title sponsor. Then we phased out Singular, and we phased out Verizon on sponsorship of cars because they wanted to they wanted to have sole, sponsorship rights, basically. And the same thing with Goodyear bumping out and being the only tire, Sunoco fuel, and especially right after Kevin Harvick won the Daytona and he had Shell all over his stuff. So I kind of have mixed feelings with it because it's one of those things. So I don't know. But anyway, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I definitely had a ball, and looking forward to catching back up with you later in the season, and see how it's going in all three series, and see how all that's going, and looking forward to having you back on the show.
Yeah, thank you. As always, I love being on the show, and heck, whenever I can, let me know, and I'd love to be back on the show.
Yes, ma'am. Looking forward to it. Good luck on the 2016 season, and good luck in school, and look forward to having you back on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That was Hannah Newhouse. Always love having her on the show. Always love having the opportunity to be able to talk to her and be able to get to catch up and pick her brain. It's always a great, fun time.
Saving money is about to get even easier because a brand new Walmart Supercenter is opening soon near you. Now you can find low prices you can trust every day on all your grocery favorites, like fresh produce, quality meats, and more. Plus, let our pharmacy take care of all your prescription and over-the-counter medication needs. With Walmart, saving is simple.
Your new Walmart Supercenter is scheduled to open on March 9th at the corner of Black & Decker Road and US 303 in Fayetteville.
Save money, live better, Walmart.